Hello and welcome to Saints Live. I'm Steve Forbes.
And I'm Kenzie Benali.
And we're back from the international break as Southampton return to Premier League action today with a trip up to Elland Road to take on Leeds. And a win could see Southampton move up to 9th in the table. Now, here to discuss all things pre-match, we have former Saints captain Dean Hammond and football reporter for the Daily Mail, Adrian Kajumba. Dean, how have you been? Have you enjoyed your little international break?
Yeah, I have. I've missed you guys, of course. But it's been nice. Spent lots of time with the family, which is always good. Kids have broke up for half term, but looking forward to the football return. And I must admit, always look forward to watching Southampton play.
Fantastic stuff. And Adrian, we haven't seen you for a little while. How have you been keeping?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me back. Yeah, we've enjoyed the break as well. It's nice to just take your foot off the pedal a little bit, but Premier League, we're all delighted to see that back. So looking forward to today and the rest of the season.
Most definitely. Lovely to have you back with us, and we're all ready and raring to go, aren't we? Well, let's take a look at the early team news now then, shall we? Because, of course, the team news is coming up in less than 15 minutes' time. You can see Ralph and his men arriving there at Elland Road. Now, we know that Lianco is the only definite absentee that we're aware of. The remaining team news does seem pretty positive, though, really. Alex McCarthy has been back in training. Will Smallbone did have COVID over the international break, but has also returned to the training ground, and Oriol Romeu had a stomach issue that no longer seems to be a problem, so he could also feature as well today. So Dean, with all of that in mind, how do you see today's starting lineup looking?
Well, very similar to what it has been previously and of late, Kenzie, and from the I think pretty good performance against Man City in the FA Cup. So I don't think there'll be too many changes. Personally, I would like to see Nathan Redmond come back into the team. I think, especially for this fixture, I think he could be really effective against this Leeds team in one-on-one situations, and with his pace and his willingness to take players on. I would like to see him come back into the team. I'd like to see. I think Adam Armstrong did okay against Man City. I know that there was times where maybe he snatched at shots and maybe could have probably personally felt he'd done a little bit better in those situations. But I thought he looked lively. I thought he looked sharp. He got some really good situations. He hit the post. And I think if he gets a run of games now, he could score a few goals towards the end of the season. So I'd like to see Adam Armstrong stay within the team. And I think Bednarak will come back in. I think Jack Stevens did okay, but there was moments where you could probably see that he wasn't match fit and wasn't sharp enough probably for what is needed. So Bednarak coming back in and partnering Salisu, I think will be effective. So not too many changes, but I'd like to see those three come back into the team, and especially I think, like I say, Adam Armstrong. I think he deserves the opportunity. Brozier and Shay Adams have been fantastic, but I'd like to see the partnership of Shay Adams and Adam Armstrong today and see them combining. And I think those two could really cause Leeds some problems today. But the manager has a brilliant squad to choose from. Players have been away on international duty. We'll have confidence from that. I'm sure some players have had a rest, and I'm sure they've had some time on the training ground to work on a few things that they want to do better from previous results. And obviously leading into this game against a team in Leeds who've picked up some good results of late. So lots of options, but I can't see too many changes.
I mean, given the break, Adrian, some players will have fresh legs. What kind of lineup are you expecting Ralph to pick today?
I wonder if maybe just looking at recent results, obviously there's no disgrace in losing to Man City, but I wonder if looking at maybe the league results before that, we might maybe see the bulk of what we saw from Ralph and Southampton, maybe before or including actually the Villa game. They had a nice sort of chemistry and run of form, and I feel they've maybe just been knocked out of stride, certainly in the Premier League, by that kind of freak result, really, at Aston Villa. Obviously, Ralph has tried to change things more recently in the last couple of weeks, maybe just to try and give different players a chance after what happened at Aston Villa and try and rediscover that spark. And again, results-wise, that maybe hasn't happened. So I wondered if it will be, sort of the majority of that side we saw during that good run, obviously providing Oriol Romeu is fine. I agree with what Dean was saying about Adam Armstrong as well, because I know, Armando Brozier's form has maybe just dropped off a tiny bit, so that there's maybe a little possibility there. And the left back position is always interesting because you've got Carl Walker-Peters and you've got Roman Perot who can fill that role as well. So a couple of options there. So I think we'll probably see, as I said, the majority of the side we saw back, going into the Aston Villa game maybe today.
Well, just over, or under rather, 10 minutes to go until we can bring you that team news. And great to see plenty of you already getting in touch with us here on Saints Live. Cameron Ward, hello to you. He says, come on, you Saints. He's going for a 3-1 win today, and he's joining us from sunny Cyprus, his last day on holiday. Thanks for keeping us company. Stu Smith, hello to you. He also says, come on, you Saints. Let's get back to winning ways. And a comment here from Richard Ellis. A good showing, please, Saints. A point at least after a bad run. Well, Dean, let's look back at the Manchester City game because Saints created plenty of chances, didn't they? So even though the scoreline perhaps doesn't reflect that and does look pretty one-sided, there were actually plenty of positives to take from that game.
There was loads, Kenzie, loads of positives. I think the performance, especially in the first half and for the first hour, was fantastic. I think at times they outsmarted, they outfought Man City. There was lots of desire, commitment, and moments of real quality from the Southampton players. Some of the one-touch football, some of the movement, like I mentioned, the desire to win the ball. You see Livramento here, rise 2 brilliant challenges, fantastic pass from Oya Romeo, and that movement I mentioned from Adam Armstrong was really unfortunate with the finish. But there were some really good moments, and they asked some real questions of a brilliant Man City team, one of the best teams in Europe. But the passing and the movement was very, very good. There's some fortune to the goal, but I think Southampton really, really earned that in terms of their commitment, their performance. And what I enjoy for Southampton when they play Man City, they're really brave. They take Man City on and challenge them and ask questions of them. This is the brilliant pass from James Ward-Prowse there, a good pass from Elanusi, and that chance for Shea Adams if he could have scored that. So I thought it was an excellent game of football, a really good cup tie, and Southampton did themselves credit. Pressed Man City at times, like we can see, winning the ball back here with Kyle Walker-Peters. And I really love that from Oya Romeo when he plays that ball around the corner into Adam Armstrong again. And that's what I mentioned, where Adam got into really good positions, whether it was going in behind the Man City defence with his movement, his sharp movement, or whether it was coming into that kind of hole in between midfield and defenders to get on the half turn, and get a shot off. So there was moments, for the first hour, that cup tie could have gone either way. And it was just, I think Southampton potentially just run out of energy because of the effort they put in and the work rate and the commitment with and without the ball. But yeah, I think if they can take that performance into Leeds today, they will cause Leeds lots of problems. So I'm sure they've looked at the video. I'm sure they've analysed it over the last couple of weeks and taken the positives from there. And there's lessons as well. When you're playing the best teams in Europe, like they are against Man City, you have to be on your mettle for 90 minutes because they do have top-class players and world-class players. And that just shone through in the end. But there were some really good moments from Southampton.
Well, following that result, plenty of Southampton players went away on international duty, including Kyle Walker-Peters, who Ralph spoke about in his press conference.
Finally, Kyle Walker-Peters. When I look back at earlier in the season and he couldn't keep his place at right back because of Tino arriving and everyone thinking, oh, what's going to happen to him? And now we are in April nearly, and he's got 2 England caps. Quite a season.
Yeah, amazing, absolutely, and shows you how that it is not a disadvantage if you are flexible and you can play more positions. This is what I always tell my players, to be open-minded, to do the best on every position where the manager puts you in. And yeah, it is a fantastic message for him and for everybody else. And I have seen the first game he has played. I think it was okay. It was he won the ball before the equalizer in a way what we want to do with a high pressing situation. He had with the ball a big chance. I think he was lucky that he was offside, because otherwise when he missed this, it's not so nice for him. But yeah, he showed a few skills that are definitely there. It's still tough because there's a lot of quality on this position in the English international team. So when everybody's back fit, then it's tough to be there. But I think he showed up, and this is an amazing signal for him, for us as a club, and for every player who is playing here.
Well, Adrian, it's quite an unusual situation with Kyle Walker-Peters, isn't it? Playing right back for England, but conceivably won't be playing there today for Southampton. How do you assess his position at the moment, and also his prospect of playing as a regular right back for England?
firstly, congratulations to Carl. It's obviously great recognition to get that call up. Um, and I actually thought he might be in the squad straight from the off. Actually, I remember trying to make some inquiries before the squad came out because I thought he might be in with a shout of getting in there with everything that was going on. Fullback wise for England, it is unusual to the situation that he's possibly in, where he's played most of the season down the left hand side, and then he gets in and gets two caps playing down the right hand side. That's sort of testament to his versatility, his quality, and I think a lot down to what he did last year. I thought he was very good last year. Grew as the season went on. Some really energetic displays down the right as well, and I thought, I thought he was maybe unlucky at the start of the season, but to lose his place. But Tino Livramento has done so well, as we've all seen as well. What goes on? What happens next is going to be really interesting because there's so much competition down the right for England. It's probably one of the positions that they're strongest in. So I think a lot of it's going to depend on maybe how Ralph manages it. Maybe not the rest of this season, but I wonder next season if you've got a Kyle Walker-Peters in contention to play down the right and go to a World Cup in the middle of the season, how teams start and how players start at the start of next season is going to impact, whether they're getting called up for their national teams and in what position. So in some ways, having Kyle Walker-Peters' England prospects in his hands is going to be interesting to see how Ralph deals with that. But on the flip side, he's shown his versatility, as I mentioned, and that may be something that helps him get in the England squad. Gareth Southgate spoke about that. It's something that's probably helped Kieran Trippier sort of stay in and around it because he's been able to play on the left-hand side as well. So he's in a great place. Gareth Southgate said everyone who he's called up and even the players that he drafted into the last squad are the ones who are, he wasn't just calling them up for the sake of it for one camp. He's got them in his mind for Qatar. So Kyle Walker-Peters is in a very good place and with his ability to play left-back, maybe got more options than others.
There is so much competition for that England right back berth, Dean. You've got the likes of Trent Alexander-Arnold, Reece James, Kyle Walker as well. So what are the chances that Walker-Peters will be on the plane to Qatar?
Well, Adrian's just mentioned there, Gareth Southgate, I believe, wouldn't have called him up to the squad unless he had been monitoring him, was an option for the World Cup. Like you say, with the names you mentioned, it's a challenge because, England have such a variety of players at right back with such quality, and they are. But Kyle Walker-Peters is a little bit different. He's different in terms of he can run with the ball. He's very, very good in one-on-one situations. He'll commit and take players on, which you could suggest that the other two or three don't. Their delivery and their distribution is brilliant, but it's more from a deeper position. Kyle Walker-Peters is more like a kind of winger, really. He has that flexibility. He can adapt and play at either side, at right back or left back. And with, there's only really Luke Shaw for England. Ben Chilwell's had that long-term injury, so he's not really going to be an option, but he may be, but he hasn't played much this year. And also, I think Kyle Walker-Peters is a better defender. I think he's improving as a defender all the time. Can play wing back as well, which is important. And one thing that I think I've read Gareth Southgate mention, that he wants England to be able to play further up the pitch and press the opposition a little bit more. And Kyle Walker-Peters does that for Southampton, and that's how Southampton play. So he understands that role within the team because of his experience with Southampton. So that could potentially give him the edge. It's going to be difficult for him because of the quality in front of him and because of the added experience those players have. But he's been performing very, very well. And I think that versatility to be able to play right or left back could really give him a chance.
Yeah, delighted for Carl. It's so great to see him get the call up. Well, some more comments coming into us, which is always great to see. Thanks for getting in touch. And just about enough time to leave a comment and tell us who you'd like to see in the Southampton starting lineup today. We've got a comment here from Russ Ward. Hello to you. He is going for a 3-1 Saints win. I've seen that scoreline pop up a couple of times today. Steve Adams is also with us. He says, come on, Saints, let's get the win. And Brian Ings has got in touch as well. He's going for a 2-1 win to the Saints, and he says, come on, you Reds as well. So please do keep those comments coming into us throughout the duration of Saints Live. But for now, it's time to bring you the Southampton team news to take on Leeds. 4 changes to the side that started against Manchester City in the FA Cup. Bednarek and Livramento return in defence. Diallo comes into the midfield, and also Adams and Brozier. So let's take a look at that lineup in full then. In goal, it's Fraser Forster. The back 4, Kyle Walker-Peters, Jan Bednarek, Mohamed Salisu and Tino Livramento. In front of them in the midfield is Oriol Romeo, captain James Ward-Prowse and Ibrahima Diallo. And then it's Moi Elianusi, Armando Brozier and Shay Adams who complete the starting lineup. The Southampton substitutes then are as follows: Willie Caballero, Jack Stevens, Jan Valery, Roman Perro, Will Smallbone, Stuart Armstrong, Nathan Teller, Adam Armstrong and Shane Long. So Adrian, let's come to you first then to get your thoughts on that lineup to take on Leeds this afternoon.
I'm just digesting that now. Kyle Walker-Peters looks like he's going to be playing left back, as we talking about his versatility and the position he'll be in. And you just read it out as a 4-3-3, which is interesting to see how that works. Obviously with the 3 central midfielders as well. So Brozier back in, Shay Adams. We've got the firepower there, the sort of front 2 that he's been relying on predominantly this season. So yeah, looks a strong side. Diallo and possibly going to 3 central midfielders I didn't expect. So let's see how that pans out.
Yeah, Dean, what are your thoughts on that then? Seeing James Ward-Prowse, Oriol Romeo and Ibrahima Diallo feature in the same team together.
Yeah, interesting, Kenzie. I think there's a few options. Just looking at it now, and I think potentially there could be a change of shape, like you've mentioned. Potentially a diamond in midfield. You could have Oriol Romeo kind of sitting in front of the back 4, Diallo and Ward-Prowse kind of narrow in the middle, and then Elianusi behind Shay Adams and Brozier up front. So playing very narrow in the centre of the pitch, okay, with Livramento and Kyle Walker-Peters giving you width. You could potentially go to a back 5 where Oriol Romeo could drop into that into the back 5, which he's done before, which the manager likes sometimes for Southampton to have a little bit of deeper possession and maybe invite Leeds onto them, because Leeds will try and press Southampton today. Or you could go to the natural kind of 4-2-2-2 with Diallo and Elianusi playing wide. So it'll be really interesting to see how they line up today and what shape and what system and ideas that the manager and the players have come up with against this Leeds team. But good choice of players, lots of talent, lots of energy, and lots of discipline within that shape, which I think sometimes you need away from home. So be interesting to see, but always pleased to see when Southampton go with 2 strikers, especially with Shay and Brozier. I mentioned Adam Armstrong. I was hoping he would get another opportunity, but Shay Adams and Brozier will cause any defence problems. So yeah, looking forward to this team selection.
Now, before we go on to talk more about today's game and our opponents, Leeds, Adrian, I wanted to ask you about the Premier League's decision to introduce 5 substitutions from next season. How do you think that's going to impact a club like Southampton?
I'm kind of really on the fence about this development and how that change is going to be next season. I can see both sides of it. You can see that the sort of player welfare aspect of it that's been advanced, that having more changes just gives managers a greater chance to share the workload of minutes among their players. But you can see it maybe the complaints from some of the smaller clubs. He's saying, if you're playing Liverpool or Man City and give them the option to change half their team during the course of a game, then all that means is it's just more quality they're able to throw at you. So you can see how they may feel that puts them at a disadvantage. From Southampton's side, I believe Ralph's a fan of it, and that's partly because it will give him a chance to blood more academy players and give them a chance to sort of experience first team football and Premier League football. And I think if it's going to be used that way by Ralph and other managers and other clubs across the Premier League, I think that's a great way to take advantage of the extra 2 substitutions that you can make. I don't know if there's any way that almost that could be enforced, and maybe as this rule comes into play, clubs could maybe agree that those extra 2 substitutions can be used sort of almost formally in that way, because that would kind of answer back to those clubs who feel that it's going to be just exploited by the bigger clubs. But I feel the way that Ralph is planning to use it and the way he's spoken about it, and he's also mentioned about the intensity Southampton play as well, so they can benefit from it that way. But I believe the academy side of things is quite important, and if clubs are to use it that way, great, I'm all for it.
Now, Dean, this is a topic we have discussed a few times previously on the show, but now it's official. How can you see it impacting games next season?
Well, I think for Southampton, Kenzie, it's good news. I really, really do, because it gives Southampton more options during the game. We've seen this season that the manager likes to adapt and change shape. If you think back to the West Ham game in the FA Cup, where the manager made 2 substitutions at half time, and it really, really worked for Southampton. And Adrian just mentioned it, for a team like Southampton, the intensity and the energy they put into games, to be able to then bring on maybe 3 or 4 or 3 subs later on in the game could make a real difference. And obviously blooding academy players, there will be more opportunities for the younger players, whether Southampton are winning comfortably and they can bring players on to give them that Premier League experience, which is really important for Southampton, again, in terms of their philosophy for the football club. So I think it's brilliant. I think it's the right decision. Yes, you could argue there is a slight advantage for the bigger clubs because they've got bigger squads. They've got more quality within their squads. So it's going to give them more options. But that's life. You have to get on with that. And I think it gives Southampton more options. And to change shape as well, where you can change more players or more personnel in a certain position. So I like it. And I think it needs to be introduced. The speed of the game now is so intense at the top level. That playing 90 minutes week in, week out, unless you're James Ward-Prowse, who can do it, and he's just a freak of nature, it's very, very difficult. So I think this could really benefit Southampton next year in terms of giving them more options. And I'm sure the manager's very, very happy with the decision.
Refocusing on today's action, the attacking players that Ralph has selected to take on Leeds, Moye Elyounoussi, Shea Adams and Armando Brozier. Adrian, how do you think those players can cause Leeds problems? Because we know they can be vulnerable defensively and they've conceded more goals than any other team in the Premier League this season.
Yeah, they have. They have been very, very open at times. Leeds this season is probably a big factor, arguably the biggest in why Marcelo Bielsa is no longer there anymore, and it's Jesse Marsch in charge. They've not been helped, Leeds, by the injuries they've had to Cooper and Llorente, who are in the team today. And they've also ditched the man marking system as well, which was a big problem as well, because it left them open. If teams pulled them apart and moved their players around, they followed their man, but they didn't really fill the gaps that were left in behind them when one of their defensive players was pulled up the pitch. So we're still getting to know the changes that Marsch is going to introduce to Leeds and how that's going to impact them, because obviously they've been such a big story since they came back up to the Premier League, and everyone sort of had an opinion on the way Bielsa played, and he stuck to his principles, and regardless of results and how many goals they shipped, he just wasn't going to change. So we need to see a bit more maybe about what Marsch is going to do and how that's going to impact them defensively. But Brozier, Shea Adams and Elyounoussi as well, depending on the position that he picks up as well. He may be somebody who's maybe dropping off and in little spaces and pockets of space, maybe in behind their midfield and in front of their defence, trying to make things happen, depending on how they set up today. But Brozier and Adams will cause, central defenders up and down the league problems. So, they've got good firepower out there on the pitch, Southampton, today.
Well, before we reflect on the last time these two sides met, let's hear from you, the fans, once again. See what you make of today's starting 11. Steve Townsend, says strong team that can take the win. Matt Bushby seems happy too. He says this team should be good enough to get over the line against a struggling Leeds team. Need a good, strong start from the team, a quick goal, good, solid defence, and we could win this up the mighty Saints. And a little whoop whoop as well, says David Piper. Vincent Goff's got in touch, and now this is all capitalised. He is particularly happy to see Nathan Tella on the bench. He says Tella is back. Come on, I beg, he comes on today. And Michael Stretch has also got in touch. He says he's going for a 2-1 win to the mighty Saints. Well, let's reflect then, as I mentioned, Dean, on when we welcomed Leeds to St Mary's earlier on in the season. Of course, Southampton came out on top in a 1-0 victory, but Saints had 19 shots compared to Leeds' 3. Was that more comfortable than the scoreline suggests?
Yeah, reflecting on the game, it was more comfortable than a 1-0 win. Lots of opportunities for Southampton. Like you say, 19 attempts. I think it was the first win of the season as well for Southampton. I think remember James Ward-Prowse didn't play, which obviously doesn't happen too much. But I think Nathan Redmond was very good in this performance. This game against Leeds, played in kind of a number 10 role or kind of up front with Brozier and created lots of problems for Leeds. So it was a good performance from Southampton. Lots of opportunities created, like we can see with, Leeds were stretched on many occasions with the movement from Brozier in behind and the movement from Nathan Redmond. And the goal was fantastic. It was a counter-attacking goal. I think it was a brilliant pass from Gineppo. Brilliant movement from Nathan Redmond, who drove at the Leeds defence and kind of just delayed his pass for Brozier to score. So it was a 1-0 victory, but it was an excellent performance from Southampton and really well deserved. And I can't really remember the Southampton goalkeeper, whether it's Fraser Forster or McCarthy playing in goal on the day, whether they had a save to make. I remember a couple of Salisu blocks, but defensively Southampton were very, very solid, had lots of possession of the ball, and kind of it was the start of a good run of victories and performances for Southampton. So yeah, another performance like that today would be very, very welcome. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see how different this Leeds team is today after they've picked up a couple of really, really valuable results of late.
Well, talking about the start of good things, that game marked the start of Armando Brozier scoring his first Premier League goal on his first Premier League start. And Adrian, what a season it's been for him.
Yeah, it has been a great sort of first season for him in the Premier League, his first sort of regular exposure to English football. And I'm sure he'll be itching to get to sort of double figures soon, just to get that kind of tangible reward and sort of say, I had my first stab at it and I did really well. I got a good number of goals. He's shown a real variety throughout the season, not just in his finishing ability, also the actual attributes that he's got as well. He's very rounded, and maybe when you're looking at a striker, talking about strikers, there's not many attributes and things that Armando Brozier can't do. I really like the way Ralph has managed him this season in terms of the things he's been asking of him, but also the way he's spoken about him as well. I don't think. Sometimes I imagine that, a manager may get a young player from a big club and be sort of mindful of the club that they've come from, etc. But I feel like Ralph has really treated him and spoken about him as if he was one of the players who's come from Southampton's academy. He's encouraged him. Yes, he's trying to bring him on. But, where there's been things that Armando Brozier has not been doing, he's not been afraid to point out as well, which has almost been praise and pointers whenever he's spoken about Brozier as well, which I think is really good as well. And I'm sure in the long term, Armando Brozier will be grateful for, what he's picked up from his time at Southampton.
Most definitely. Well, Dean, taking a more in-depth look then at today's opponents, Leeds, they definitely had a defined playing style, didn't they, under Bielsa? What's different now that the boss in charge is Jesse Marsch?
Well, I don't think they're as gung-ho. They're not quite as adventurous in terms of the man-to-man system that Bielsa created at Leeds, which was really, really exciting to watch at times. But I think they lost that element of surprise after a couple of seasons in the Premier League. But I think there's a little bit more structure, but still fast counter-attacking football. Will still look to press and win the ball really high up against the opposition. They've shown that they've still got that passion and that character in terms of the last couple of results with 90-minute plus winners against Norwich and Wolves, which is going to be really important for them in terms of trying to stay in the Premier League. But yeah, it's very, very similar. It's not too different. He's not going to come in and be that kind of Sam Allardyce where they're going to, look defensively and put lots of bodies behind the ball and try and nick a 1-0 win. There's still going to be that excitement and still going to be that adventure from him. I think he really likes bringing younger players through that play with that intensity and that energy and that willingness to take risks. So I think they've been pretty clever in this appointment that they needed to make a change from Bielsa, who'd done brilliant at Leeds, but they wanted a manager who was pretty similar, just with a little bit more structure defensively, because I think towards the end, the amount of goals that they were conceding, the man-to-man system didn't quite work anymore in terms of teams had worked them out a little bit. But yeah, I think they're still on the front foot. They counter-attack with pace and and they do create opportunities, and they will try to win games. They're not going to try and draw or, like I say, nick a 1-0 win. There'll still be lots of 4-3s with Leeds, so they'll be exciting to watch.
Well, Leeds have seen a bit of an upturn in form. They recorded back-to-back victories before the international break. Do you think they're clear of relegation, Adrian, or maybe there's still a chance of them going down?
Not yet clear. I think they're almost there. Maybe sort of one more win, two they might need just to be absolutely certain. You know, they were obviously in serious danger under Bielsa. They were sort of heading one way, really, if we're being honest. You know, with results, the way they were going, the goals they were letting in, the injuries, they just couldn't clear up. Bamford's still going to be a miss, and looks like he's out for pretty much the rest of the season. So they've really struggled on that front. But those 2 wins before the international break are just massive for them. You know, when you're down there at the table at this time of the season, sort of successive wins, if you're able to just put some results together, it can really make a big difference and, you know, change the situation that they were in under Bielsa to one that's looking like, you know, they're almost safe. I think you maybe got to look at maybe just mathematically Burnley, because they've got games in hand. I think it's 3 games in hand they got on Leeds, but the problem with that is I think Burnley have only won 3 games all season, so to expect them all of a sudden to be able to turn that into the 3 wins that pull them level with or take them past Leeds, I think it is, you know, it's probably unlikely, but you've got to get the points if your Leeds on board just to make sure that there's no chance of that happening. Everton as well, depending on how Everton have also played 3 games less, so you know, if they get the right results, they could just drag Leeds into it, depending on how Leeds do. But I think they're almost there, Leeds, thanks to those 2 wins, really, just before the international break.
Well, kick-off at 3 o'clock is fast approaching. So before we come to you both for your final thoughts ahead of the match, let's hear what the fans have to say. David Palmer, hello, thanks for getting in touch. He says, come on lads, let's get back to winning ways. Come on you Saints. Patrick Moore, good afternoon. He says, great midfield, pretty good bench. Think we can get the win today. Lots of goals. And a final comment for now from James Azar. He says, hopefully this last break has given the team a rejuvenation and they can forget the last 4 games. Yeah, onwards and upwards indeed. Well, Dean, let's come to you then for your score predictions and final thoughts ahead of kickoff.
Well, I think it's going to be an entertaining game. I really do. 2 attacking teams that are going to take the game to each other and try to win, like I previously mentioned. So I'm looking forward to this. I think it will be an interesting tactical battle between the players and the manager. But I'm confident, and I'm going to go for a 2-1 Southampton win.
What about yourself, Adrian? Do you see Southampton getting back to winning ways? What do you think the score's going to be?
I do. I was going to go 3-1. I'm quite intrigued to see how it all works with Ralph's team, with the players he's got in the middle. I see that potentially they could control the sort of central areas of the pitch. I mean, we spoke about the sort of attacking options they got there with Shea and Armando up top. I think Leeds still, although they have changed manager, and as we said, they're not quite as open as they were before. I still feel there's that element of them, and I think when you're playing against a high energy, high intensity team like Southampton, they can take advantage of that still.
Okay, well there you go. Dean, Adrian, a pleasure to be joined by you both as always. Thanks ever so much for your company. Now, as we've mentioned, Leeds will be looking for revenge after the Saints beat them 1-0 earlier in the season at St Mary's. And of course, we'll be back after the game to bring you all of the major talking points from the action at Ellen Road. So make sure you join us then on the final whistle.